Will the Cleveland Public Safety Committee come to order? Madam Clerk, do we have a quorum? Would you please call the roll? Present.
Present.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. We are going to start with legislation first, and we're going to start with ordinance number 43-2025. So who's ever here for that, please come to the table. And please identify yourself for the viewing public.
Good morning, Chair. I'm Sonia Pryor-Jones, Chief for Youth and Family Success.
Yep.
Should I repeat that?
Yes, go ahead.
Good morning, Chair. Sonia Pryor-Jones, Chief for Youth and Family Success.
Just hit the, speak into the mic.
And I am Sherry Ellery, Assistant Director for Prevention, Intervention, and Opportunity.
Okay. Ordinance number 43-2025 by Council Members Bishop, Polensek, and Griffin by departmental request, an emergency ordinance authorizing the Director of Finance on behalf of the Office of Prevention, Intervention, and Opportunity for Youth and Young Adults to employ one or more professional consultants to design and implement projects to support the transformation of city recreation centers into trauma-informed neighborhood resource and recreation centers, to develop and provide programs and activities for youth and their families, to serve as tools to prevent violence, develop skills and knowledge to overcome challenges associated with trauma and toxic stress, and to create opportunities for youth and their families to live quality lives for a period up to 18 months, with one option to renew for a period up to 18 months, exercisable by Director of Finance. Came to us for the first time. First reading was January 6th, approved by Director of Finance. There's no legal objection by law. There is a amendment suggested by the administration. There is no legal objection to the legislation if amended as follows. In Section 2, at the end, insert ROS 0114, comma, RLA 2025-06. And that came to us by Assistant Director of Law Kevin Roberts. Chief Pryor-Jones and your team, tell us what this is about.
Thank you, Chairman, and thank you for hearing us this morning. This is focused specifically on our contract services that are focused on providing high-quality programming for out-of-school time activities for youth in our rec centers and other community spaces, as well as the summer employment and other employment opportunities that we provide for youth ages 14 through 18. And so in your packet, you have some of that information. This is our standard requests that we come to you, to the council for each year to make sure that these programs are available to our young people. And as you noted, you also have the amendment adding the RQS number to this ordinance. And so we are really focused on making sure we do not have interruption of these programs that are providing youth with high quality youth development opportunities after school and in summer and during their breaks. These program types are above and beyond traditional recreation center programming, and they focus on youth development best practices in the areas of education, job and career readiness, health and wellness, overall youth development, community service and mentorship, as well as non-traditional recreation, things like rugby, soccer, which are becoming more and more popular for our youth. You could see here that this program has accomplished a number of things. Last year, we were able to employ through summer jobs, some extended career opportunities, as well as stipend-based opportunities, 400 youth. You can also see here the ward representation across all 17 wards. We have had young people engaged in some type of career exploration and employment that also gives them an opportunity to earn dollars, which we know in a community like ours where poverty is very high, it's important that young people have that opportunity. Our top 3 wards are wards 1, 2, and 5 with the highest number of participants in the last year. You can also see here that this has grown. We've been very creative to think about different ways in which we can provide young people with employment opportunities as young as age 14. In addition to that, I do want to highlight for you how we're doing as it relates to overall participation. This slide here, slide 10, lets you take a look at the number of participants who've participated in at least one program session. This has grown tremendously from the time this administration started with our first summer of 2022, where we started with 558 individuals. Last summer, we had 1,379 individuals. Summer 2023. And then in summer 2024, last summer, there were 1,758 individuals taking advantage of these programs across our recreation centers and in some of our other community spaces. Summer is a very important time to engage young people, to keep them in safe spaces with caring adults, and these programs help to do that. The last page here lists the projected contracts for 2025 that will continue to allow us to provide these opportunities for you. And I will stop there, and we will answer any questions you all may have.
Okay. So on your last page, do these vendors operate out of all the rec centers?
Sherry?
So if your question is, for example, is Teen Enterprise in every rec
Yes.
center? That is not the case. Their contract is for 4 rec centers, so every season we ask the managers what programs they want in their rec centers, and then we assign them based on that. And so each contract is a little different in terms of how many rec centers they serve and how many seasons they serve.
Okay. So what you're going to supply us, you're going to tell us at each of the rec centers what specific programs are at each of the rec centers as it pertains to the vendors. So we have a better idea as to what, because you indicated there are 3 centers that have the highest participation. So the question is, are those the 3 centers that have the best programs?
To the chair, if I can make a correction
Right.
there. Those 3 centers, the 3 wards with the highest participation rates were not for the programs that are in the centers. They were
Okay.
for the summer jobs program, which is also covered through this ordinance.
Okay, so the YOU, that was strictly just job program?
Correct.
Okay. So what do you attribute then, but again, I'm going to request that information in each of the rec centers, what programs specific these vendors are at. But as it pertains to the YOU program, have you done any deep dive as to why the participation is so low in some of the neighborhoods?
So we have not done a deep dive, but I can share some context that might help us with
Okay.
that. Some of it is the number of age-appropriate youth that happen to live in those communities.
Okay.
Some of it is also the application process and the requirements for eligibility that the number of youth have. But we're happy to come back to the
Yeah.
committee and to council with YOU to do a deeper dive.
And I would like that, because this is something that I feel very passionate about, summer employment. And it's important, I believe, for all of us to try to hire as many kids as possible to be working in our neighborhoods.
To the
And-
chair, we agree with
Yeah,
you on that
yeah.
full-heartedly.
I've always maintained that we need to put a greater emphasis on youth employment in this city. So, so going back to the whole operation, as you are aware, we're deep diving on the budget. We're looking at things. So here, if you look at your budget from 2022, Office of Intervention, Prevention, and Opportunity, to today, your proposed budget for 2025, your budget has increased $2 million. That's a substantial increase from the general fund. That's a 17% increase over the previous year. So as we're looking with all of us in the body, and let me just step back from our greatest concern within the body is we have no knowledge or understanding what could possibly be cut on the federal level. We're hearing all kind of rumors about federal cutbacks. We don't know what could get cut back on the state level. There's discussions again within Columbus as it pertains to cutting funding for municipalities again. So I'm looking at the overall operation of the budget. So your budget has increased $834,000. Your recommended budget to us has increased $834,000, $326. What do you attribute that to?
To the chair, I would attribute it to being at full capacity. If you may recall, when we first
Okay.
arrived, we did not have full staff capacity. We now do. All of our staff capacity is up, and people are working on a wide variety of programs. We also are housing some additional programming, things like the Commission for Black Women and Girls. We also work very hard to, with our partners, to put out ARPA dollars that would support families with childcare and childcare scholarships. So we have grown in our capacity in terms of people and people doing the work, as well as what we've delivered in services to our residents.
Okay. So your staffing has increased 57%. And your project coordinators, what do the project coordinators do?
And so we have a variety of people doing works in the project coordinator description. And so some of those folks are focused on data. And so the data points that we're able to cover with you at your request to help us share our impact, we have people doing that kind of work. We also have 2 new team members who are working in this space so that we can better be coordinated with our external partners who also provide out-of-school time services, because you are correct. None of us know what's going to happen at the federal and state level. So this is a time to double down on good services for our residents and to make sure we're coordinating with partners. And so we have Mr. Michael Cook and Mr. Joseph Postwaite who are behind me. They are a part of the project coordinator line. I'm just going to ask that each of them stand so you know who they are.
They're new?
And they are a part of that full capacity we now have. And so they're going to help us do what council has asked, do more outreach and engagement to ensure people know about out-of-school time and family program opportunities, as well as to streamline what we're doing with other out-of-school time partners to ensure complementary programming for all of our young people across the city.
Okay. So the project directors, where do they work out of?
And so our project directors, I have to recall to myself who is in those roles. Give me one second.
I believe those are the,
Oh, those are our support specialists. Yes, our support specialists are in the project director category.
So who's actually working at the rec center? Is there at each of the rec centers, is there a point person?
And so at each of the rec centers, we have a social support specialist who's been assigned. Those social support specialists work under Unit Director Eugenia Cash. And each of those support specialists are in each of our rec centers. They also support in school buildings and other community spaces.
Okay.
So those are the project director lines.
That's why I'm confused, because in your budget, under support specialists, it's 0. So that's what I'm trying to understand. Who's actually working at the rec centers?
So it is people who are in the project director line. We're not looking at what you're looking at, but we are happy to come back and take a close look at this with you, as today we came focused on the contractual services, but we are happy to come back and
But
review this
I'm
with
reading
you.
from you folks.
So what you're probably reading from is something, again, I don't have that in front of me.
Yeah.
And so I want to make sure that I'm giving you thorough,
Okay.
correct information.
Okay,
And
so
so we
let-
can come back and go through those budget line items.
Run through it quickly.
Just a point of information,
Yes.
Mr. Chair. Is that related? Okay, I'm just a little bit confused. Are we talking about the ordinance, or are we doing something different?
No, we're talking about the ordinance, but but this is an expansion of what they're expanding their program based on the budget, okay? So let me proceed here. So you have 3 administrative managers, 1 assistant administrator, 1 caseworker specialist, 5 project coordinators, 10 project directors, 0 special assistants to the mayor, and 0 support specialists. Then you have the assistant director, obviously. So what I'm going to ask for you is, we asked about what programs are at the rec center. Provide to us, because this is all a part of our oversight, provide to us who's the names, who's working at the specific rec centers, and what their responsibilities is.
So to the chair,
yeah.
I want to say a couple of things. We are happy to provide you with that information.
Right.
Because we came here to speak specifically on the ordinance 43,
I'm aware
2025,
of that.
which is about our standard contractual services, so that we don't disrupt the programs to youth for spring and summer. We came prepared to discuss that wholly today. Your additional requests about staff, again, we can tell you that we have social support specialists assigned to each recreation center. We're happy to come back and provide you with a list, or email you a list with each person's name and which rec center they are working in.
Okay, so you heard our request. We'll do that through staff. The legislation is in front of us today is strictly for after school and on weekends, correct?
This is strictly for our out-of-school time programs, summer employment programs.
Nothing during the day, after school, weekends, summer.
Yes. Now, keep in mind, during the day changes in the summer because children are not in the school building.
Right, okay. Questions of the committee? Councilman Slife, you had a question.
Once again, can you explain to me the difference between this department and the Department of Parks and Recreation?
This particular department is focused on prevention and opportunity programming. We work not just with the programs here at City Hall, but we work with an extensive groups of partners outside of City Hall. We do systems level work as well as some level of direct services.
Okay, so within the projected contracts, the different vendors, what programs are being provided by them that are different than what a classic Department of Recreation would offer? For example, I don't think a chess program is a valuable opportunity for a youth, but that feels like something that would be done by a parks program just as a service to have, not because of a larger initiative around trauma and violence interruption. What is the value? I'm trying to understand. I still don't understand the value add year over year. I struggle to understand the value add, and bluntly, I don't understand if the charge is to take recreation centers that are run by the Department of Recreation and turn them into trauma-informed recreation centers, why that is not being run out of the Department of Recreation.
To the councilman, this department, as it exists, was developed under the last administration. When we came in and we saw the state of the larger goals and the recreation department, it made sense to us to continue this vision forward. What I can tell you is that traditional recreation programming typically is gym and swim, as people would call it, so it's a lot of sports-based programming. In our work, the only sports-based programming you see is for non-traditional sports, things like rugby. In the urban community, soccer is a newer, non-traditional sport, and it really does allow for the opportunity for recreation to focus in on their traditional work, their physical location, and in partnership that we can bring on these additional programs. And it is these types of programs that fall under prevention, making sure that we are providing population level, high quality experiences for our kids wherever they may show up, including our recreation centers, so that they are least likely to get involved with violence. And so it's a preventative measure, and recreation centers do not always do that kind of work. There is nothing here that is a duplication, but in fact, it is complementary and done in partnership.
So respectfully, I guess I'm just of the opinion that if the Cleveland Department of Recreation is not currently offering soccer and rugby, and there's demand for it, and there are dollars available for it, that is something that we should put on them and not expect them to only exist within a box, that we should understand how they can evolve. And I also believe that, yes, it is valuable to provide these opportunities for children who may otherwise be tempted by the world around them, but it's also just good to do to provide to our kids, full stop. And that remains my struggle. When in addition to the request that you gave, well, let me ask a question first. The last slide, the projected contracts, this is $2.8 million. Is there an RFP process? Like, how are we projecting that these are the contracts? Are these sole sourced? Is there a process where other potential entities could kind of put themselves forward for some sort of program? How did you come to this list of projected contracts, and what's the process for seeking like RFQs or something like that?
Sure. I'll give a little information and then I'll turn it over to Sherry to tell you more. And so all of our vendors have to go through an RFP process before selection. That is the standard practice. This particular list of vendors are, as you can see, projected contracts. And Sherry could tell you more about where we are in this particular calendar year.
Through the chair to the councilman, we, as Councilman Polensek read in our draft ordinance, we have a year that we issue new contracts, and then the next year, many of them are renewed. Okay. And so this is what I consider a renewal year. So a lot of our contracts were originally started last year and in response to an RFP, and now we're in the renewal year for many of these particular vendors.
Okay. So in addition to the data request that you had, are we able to receive through our staff the value of all existing contracts and whatever performance metrics exist within there? I mean, we have total number of participants, but also just individual level. But so if I go to the same program 3 times, I could be counted 3 times, I could be counted once. And I'm asking because I recall last year doing some, algebra, some real concerns. I remember the Advantage Tennis one jumped out pretty much off the page, that the value we were spending per participant seemed exceedingly high for where it should be. I don't have those numbers in front of me. I tried to dig them up before we came. But I remember very specifically sitting over where Kevin is and saying, this seems like an exorbitant amount of money to be paying at the unit level for a tennis program. And I even recalled saying that it would make more sense to just pay to send kids to YMCA summer camp if the intention is to provide some sort of programming. So I want to get a better sense of kind of what the output metrics are. Mm-hmm. And what the individual unit costs are, because I do have concerns that I also recall, and correct me if this is wrong, are these performance-based contracts, or if I'm Advantage Tennis, just to pick on Advantage Tennis, and I get a $75,000 contract with the city of Cleveland, am I paid off as I perform and as I demonstrate people coming, or am I just receiving $75,000 as a check, and then I operate the program?
To the council member, everyone is required to, no one is just paid $75,000. People invoice. And so these are reimbursement payments. That's how these contracts operate. And so we don't just cut anyone a check for, the total amount of whatever their contract value is.
Is that reimbursement process, though, based on, I guess I'm imagining 2 scenarios. I could be paid out because I demonstrated that X number of participants came, or I could be paid out because I operated for X number of weeks, regardless of how many people actually came and participated. And what I'm trying to understand is there scenarios where there's an offering, but people aren't participating in it, and people are making a lot of money off of the city of Cleveland when we're not seeing the level of engagement that we would hope?
through the chair to the councilman, if there is a program that does not have an uptake or participation, we would remove that program. We wouldn't continue the program.
Okay. I will look back through our data because I do remember we received a spreadsheet last year that had all of this type of information, and that's where I extracted it from. So I don't think I'm making this up. And again, I guess I will say, I know I've been tough on this year over year. Thank you for not bringing this at committee of the whole, which has been, as I recall, the practice in the past, that we have more time to unpack all of this. I guess with that time, I'm curious why we would not go through an RFP process, determine who the vendors are definitively going to be, determine the amounts, and have them come to the table and explain who they are, what their program is, what they offer, because I can't think of any other instances where we are essentially giving a blank check to the department to enter into contracts that are over $50,000 and not requiring additional legislative authority to enter into contracts.
Through the chair to the councilman, we're not giving blank checks to anyone.
My correction, I'm saying that we are giving a blank check to you, and we are ceding our legislative authority, which is typically for any contract over $50,000, and letting this department enter into contracts above $50,000 without legislative authority.
Through the chair to the councilman.
This is the legislative authority.
Through the chair to the councilman, it is our desire to work in partnership with council members because these programs actually support residents in your wards and our youngest residents, our children. This is an opportunity for them to be engaged in the types of programs that many of us had the pleasure of being engaged in as we grew up and that have been essential to our development and leadership, allowing us to be in these kinds of positions. So I want to be clear about the nature of these programs and why they're so valuable. What I will also say to you is there is a process on the administrative side as well where people go through an RFP process, they're vetted. We do that in partnership with Recreation. We also do that in a way where we are leaning into best practices for youth development. What I will also say to you is these are not apples to apples programs. And so we're happy to provide you with information, but context also matters. What Advantage Tennis, as an example, does and what it costs them per unit might look very different from After School All-Stars. And some of that has to do with additional funding that these organizations receive. Many of them, quite honestly, offset some of the costs that our kids are able to take advantage of programs. They also have different structures and different costs themselves. And so I would caution council to just try to go apples to apples across all of these different programs because there's lots of other information that is a part of whatever their formula is and their costs might be. Okay. But I think our overall goal is to also have a process that allows us to make sure these programs are available to our kids in a timely manner based on the season and based on when we know kids have the highest need for programming. Our processes internally here at City Hall aren't always as kind to those kinds of schedules. And so that is also why we bring this to you now, because we need to be able to make sure that programs are available to our kids and they're not interrupted.
Okay. I'll end with this, Councilman Polensek, and just say that my perspective, and I worked in the previous mayor's office, is that I don't recall when this office was created that it was envisioned necessarily as a program provider as much as a convener and a way to ensure that all departments across the city are focused on how they can be involved in prevention, intervention, opportunities for youth. And I also don't think that the purpose of the administration's consultant review committee, that has typically been for contracts that are below $50,000, to make sure that there is a process when council legislation is not required, not as a way to kind of subvert that 50,000 level. So my takeaway from all of this is I am not opposed by any means to programming for kids, just all of these things added together as we stand up an individual Department of Parks and are working on a parks master or a recreation master plan and all these things. I'm trying to understand how all of these things, how all of these Venn diagrams relate and where there are opportunities to do more by being more streamlined.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Based on Councilman Slave's, if you can provide to us, we'll make that request through staff as well, for your vendors for last year, all your vendors and the dollar amount associated with those vendors as well. I think, well, I don't think I know that, Chief, that in a body, there has been this ongoing discussion among members as we have the rec centers, we have recreation, and then we have this, and why isn't it integrated? That's been a discussion. I think that's a legitimate debate, discussion we should be having. It's like we have recreation, we have the rec centers, and then we have this, we have you folks implanted there, and why isn't this all under just one operation? So, but that's for us to discuss internally and then with the mayor's team. Okay, Councilman Starr. Councilman Starr.
Thank you, Chair. For my interpretation is, this ordinance number 43, 2025, this
Yes.
is related to the summer job employment program and lifeguard training and things like that, through the chair?
Yes.
Okay, and within this ordinance, this is not necessarily the actual programming that is done in each neighborhood recreational resource center, or this is separate compared to the other different funding source?
I'll let the chief respond to that.
Through the chair to Councilman Starr, it is for both. It is the expanded programs and summer jobs.
And I see right here it's around $2.8 million. And through the chair, I'm assuming this is not a grant, this is coming through the general fund?
Through the chair to Councilman Starr, yes, this is our standard request through the general fund.
Okay, now through your 2024, it has an accomplishment of 1,211 City of Cleveland Youth by Ward representation. For my understanding, for the table understanding, what does that entitle as, or what does that actually mean through that number?
Through the chair to Councilman Starr, the slide right before that one speaks to our overall youth employment. Then this slide, 1,211 youth by ward, are the number of youth who participated in the Wild Youth Summer program.
So that's the Wild Youth Summer program. So this is the amount of kids that through your office worked to be able to get employed by Wild Youth.
Through the chair to Councilman Starr, yes, that is with funds, though, from our office, as well as funds from philanthropy and Cuyahoga County.
All right, and through the chair, when it comes to neighborhood recreational resource programming that takes place there, I'm sure that your office works to be able to provide different programming similar to some of the questions that my colleague Charlie Slife mentioned. My question would be, as far as the data from the programming that you provide, I am a firm believer that I just don't understand how many people actually are inside of our recreational centers. And from your data, to get a quick understanding is, for the dollars that we are putting into this program, is there really a way to learn how many people are taking advantage of the program that's being offered in our neighborhood recreational resource centers that you are programming out of, through the chair?
Through the chair to Councilman Starr, this slide that's up here, slide number 10, shares with you the number of people participating in the expanded programs by season.
Okay, through the chair, have we done any SWOT analysis on analyzing the participation? Because sometimes rec centers that I go into, it be empty. People may sign in and grab something to eat and then leave. And then it'd be a good program that you're possibly offering, or a great program that the center manager or someone is asking for, but when you walk in there at different various times, it seems as if no one is in there. And then obviously when we get to the table, we see these numbers. So through your lens, have your office complete any data analysis or any SWOT analysis of actual program that you are funding and operating as far as participation from the residents and those young people that's participating? Through the chair.
Through the chair to the councilman, this is how we, are able to pull the data that you see. There's always a lot more that can be done. And as you know, we thank you for the meeting you coordinated at Lonnie Burton, where PIO and Recreation came together in our complementary roles with you, talking about what more we could do to improve what's happening at Lonnie Burton. And so our new team members, Mr. Postwaite and Mr. Cook, who were introduced today, will be helping us go deeper and look at more analyses in order for us all to work together to improve what we have available for our residents.
Yes, and to the point that you just brought, Chief, through the chair, Mr. Cook knows exactly what I'm speaking of. We worked together through our years at Boys and Girls Club, and I've also mentioned a few times at this table is our recreation centers are empty. And whether we fund program or bring in program, I don't want to say it's necessarily a waste of dollars, but if the people in the neighborhood are not coming to get the resources, then we're spending money, and it becomes questionable of what is the actual partnership with the recreational center and your department. Now, you could bring the program, but one of the things we talked about at our meeting that we had, I think in December or November, was the fact that, hey, some programs was not retained, not due to the actual people who are running the program, but the lack of having people there, meaning the program may be there on a frequency of Tuesdays and Thursdays at 4:30 to 6:30. The first week someone's there, then the next 4 weeks later, the numbers just keep declining as if it's not a requirement. And through my lens of learning at Boys and Girls Club for my 16 years I did there, you have to sometimes put that on there. And we can't expect our kids to know if you don't have the support that you need in order to be able to deliver your program. So I know you're in a tough situation because obviously you're not overseeing park and recreation. And something that I talked to the director, Alex, about is how do we ensure the great programming and the contract that you are working is actually being able to be utilized and take advantage of by the people if there's not no correlation with the managers or the recruitment plan to retain these kids, because you can have something great, but if it's like free for all for anyone in the program or in the recreation center during the time of programming hours, it's like, well, I came, I signed in, grabbed something to eat, I participated this day, the next you know, I don't want to have that commitment. And we can't expect our kids to know something if we don't give them some accountability and structure when it comes to programming. So as I wrap up, I definitely wanted to continue to have these discussions, especially when it pertains to neighborhood recreational resource centers in Ward 5, because only where we can go up is up right now. Some may understand from my vision when I was a kid, the recreation center, you did everything there. And I believe it was tied to leadership. And what I mean by leadership is from the Melvin Burks to the Larry Wanzos, to the Charles Taylors, who Charles Taylor wasn't even an employee there, but he was working at Friendly Inn, but he did a lot of different program support inside of the Lonnie Burton Recreation Center, which required us to want to be there. You know, to the Jerome Baker Seniors and those type of programs, it was a need, but I don't think it's aligning as much. And even though I know you're doing the best that you can, your office is doing what you can to be able to provide the resources, I think we really need to strategically look at how do we find the people where they are at and be able to get the services to them. So I look forward to some future update meetings so we can continue to coordinate and how I can support to be able to make sure we get the program to the people. And I yield, Chair.
Thank you, Councilman Starr, for keeping time. The Councilman Starr brought up an interesting point or fact. Is PIO and Recreation engaged? He mentioned he had set up a meeting so you could dialogue. I would hope we're not operating in silos in the rec centers.
To the chair, absolutely not.
Okay.
We are really excited about the new structure
Okay.
with recreation, with this having a focused director.
Okay.
And my team meets with Alex, and we will continue to meet with her as we figure out together how do we best support recreation with complementary programming, and how do we also best support recreation and be a part of the larger coordinated ecosystem.
Thank you.
Just referencing something that Councilman Slife mentioned.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
I have a point.
Yes.
I have a point, yes, that's a point too.
Councilwoman Gray,
What,
point?
yes, thank you, Chair. What my colleague, Councilman Starr said, I just want to agree with him on that, to say that the certain programs that are implemented in the rec centers are tend to be focused on the children, for them to come in to participate. However, there's one particular program that's going on right now at Zama George, and I brought it to
Director Cash.
Director Cass' attention, I'm sorry, and she brought it to your attention, of course, because she told me that you had a conversation. And this particular after-school program is from 3 to 6, and I tend to spend a lot of time in all 3 recs. I just go visit to see what's going on, the activity of the children, and that particular program was brought to my attention to the staff there. And there's no children, there's no kids in that program at all between 3 and 6. Literally at all. I go up there to Zama George 3 times a week. One reason, because we got our new equipment, so I work out now, so I want to say I'm happy for that. But,
You know, I could add you to the list because you're going to have a more in-depth.
okay, I
line of
just wanted to do a point with,
Yeah.
Sarah said, okay, add me to the list.
I'll add, because I have
All right.
Councilman Casey, House.
Okay, go
Jones.
ahead. Okay.
Councilman Casey.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman, please excuse my lack of knowledge on this because I was just put on the committee last night, so I haven't had the opportunity to vet the pieces like I would usually do. Mr. Chairman, to the director, if I'm reading this correctly, this piece of legislation you're asking for 18 months to enter into contracts and an additional 18 months exercisable by the Director of Finance, correct?
Correct.
All right, and this legislation here gives you the authority to contract with, you have your 15 projected, but gives you the authority to contract with other entities for outside resources, correct?
Only through a RFP process.
Right, and
or administrative process.
I know that process, but it
Okay.
gives you the authority to contract through the RFP program. Are any of these contracts, Mr. Chairman, to the director, over $50,000?
Yes, some of the
Okay.
contracts are over
Okay.
$50,000.
And then those contracts that are over $50,000, do they have to come back before council for legislative authority?
I do not think so.
Not the way this is structured.
Okay, not the way that this piece is structured?
That's right.
Okay, that's one issue. Second issue is, Mr. Chairman, is that they're essentially asking for us to release our legislative authority over a 3-year period. One 18-month and then exercisable by the Director of Finance for another 18 months. So this piece of legislation, keep in mind, is a 3-year
Yes.
piece of legislation. All right. And then I just kind of want to piggyback off of Councilman Slife because these contracts, and this is a great example of contracts that should be performance-based. You know, we did a performance-based contract in utilities, and it is a lot of work. But when we're talking about, Mr. Chairman, to the director, in your words, dealing with our most vulnerable and our youth, we need to assure that the individuals that we're contracting with are actually reaching out to as many kids as possible, providing the correct services. And I don't know what, again, I'm just putting my eyes on these now. So I don't know what, Henry, I don't know what, I'll just use advantage tennis because it's just, it looks like a sport here, right? We don't know if they're getting a contract for X amount of dollars and whether they're teaching one kid tennis or whether they're teaching 2,000 kids tennis, right? I mean, we don't know. I don't think that we would be doing our job on this side of the table not to know that. So this is a great example here of setting these contracts up for performance-based or in some other way, and you have enough help on this side of the table that, and I know between Councilman Starr and Councilwoman House, that we could come up with some sort of performance-based contract for these individuals, because we need to make sure that we're getting the best bang for our buck. And I know for myself, I'm not ready to give up the legislative authority on any contract over $50,000. I think every contract that comes back, that goes out of this, from this table, should come back if it's over 50,000. And I do believe it's time for the legislative body of this, of Cleveland City Council to start looking at these contracts and making sure that they are performance-based, and make sure that these entities that are providing the services for our youth, our elderly, our underserved, our overserved, east side, west side, south side, wherever, is that we're getting the best out of these individuals who we're hiring to provide the services. I have issues, Mr. Chairman, with this piece of contract. I don't know how we're going to move forward with this, but if we do, I definitely have some amendments that I would like to proffer. We can talk off table, not right now, but for us to give 3 years, and I don't want to say it's a blank check, because it's a lot of money. I mean, you've got $3.4 million in your budgeted for this year. So, if you take that times 3, and only if your budget stays the same, and we know budgets always go up, we're looking today, you're asking for us to give you $10 million, we'll say, over 3 years. I'm just saying, we're just going through contractual, if we're just looking at your contractuals. We don't know that to be for sure, because there's other things in there. I'm just looking at your contractual amount that you put in the budget, and I'm just taking it times 3, because that's what this legislation here is asking for, is 3 years. So this piece of legislation is giving you 3 years of, even if it's $2 million in contracts that you give out, that's giving you $6 million over 3 years, or whatever your contract is. Doesn't matter if it's 200,000, right? We're still giving you 600,000 that we have no legislative authority over. Nobody's saying that anybody's doing anything wrong, on that side of the table. But I don't think that that's a situation that we as the council want to be in, nor anybody in the administration wants to be in as well. No oversight, and that's our job, is to provide oversight, especially financial oversight. And this here is kind of way too big, way too long for me to be able to support it, Mr. Chairman. Thank you.
Through the chair
yes,
to
sorry.
Councilman Casey, just as a reminder, these contracts are typically a 12-month contract, right, with a 12-month opportunity for renewal. And so, we're not making these requests or able to even spend dollars in 3 and 4 year periods of time without coming back to council. I also want to underscore, it takes staff members with experience and expertise to be able to come and support things like a performance-based system, which is, again, why we have 2 new team members. Mr. Michael Cook comes from the same world that Councilman Starr comes from, and I believe he may even live in your ward. And he is going to be doing that kind of work with us, helping us take a closer look at what we have and how it operates like the broader out-of-school time system. And so we are aware, we know that we can continue to make this process better, but at the same time, we don't want to take away programs for young people while we are improving our systems and evolving the work. And keep in mind, this is a relatively young body of work for the city that has not been fully operational with all of its team members. But if I do say so myself, a very hardworking team who is diligent, who have been doing really good work to ensure that our kids have opportunities and options, that we connect in with the broader partnerships that do this work so that we can provide some quality opportunities to our young people.
All right, and Mr. Chairman, to the chief, thank you for that, but with all due respect, when you enter into these contracts, do you have to come back before the council to enter into the contracts?
Not the way this is structured.
Not the way that it's structured, right? So I understand that they're 1 year with 1 year to renew, but we on this side have no authority over that renewal. That's on you guys. So when you come back, You're not coming back to Carmo House. We passed this today, Carmo House. You enter in a contract with them through your RFP process for 1 year, and then you can do it a second year, and then you can do it a third year and not have to come back before council. And those contracts could be 75, 100, 200,000, a million. We don't even know what they are. So I understand that. I think we're all here for the same purpose, for the same reason. I think we just don't see philosophically how to get there without us giving up our legislative authority.
The legislation allocates 2.8 million
Okay, so
for the contracts.
per year?
No, 18.
Oh, 18 months. Okay, so you want us to give up 5.6 million over 3 years with no legislative authority?
Would you have, Director, I would have to assume you would have no objection if anything over $50,000 would have to come back to City Council for ratification, correct?
To the chair, I think this is all about timing, right? Because there's such a quick turnover in seasons and in programs, and the ability for which committee, when committees meet, we do worry about timing in terms of our ability to provide programs. We also can provide you with the capacity for each of these programs and some of the information that you've requested, including the number of sessions and people that they hold capacity
Well,
for.
Mr. Chairman, that can be provided. Mr. Chairman, to the chief, you can provide that, but this is up for a vote today. So if we vote on this today and you're going to provide that, there could be 100 more questions. So that probably should have been included in the packet. All this information we're asking for should have been, you had to have known that these questions were coming. So, what the outcomes, what everything was for, should have all been provided beforehand. So I'm just letting you know, Mr. Chairman, where I stand on this. I think we're giving up way too much legislative authority. And I really think that this is a good program, but I really do believe that it needs to be tightened up, performance-based, and I think that you should work with the council in order to come up with those goals and objectives for each one of your vendors that are providing the services to our youth. Thank you.
Thank you. And to the chief, I'd be less than honest with you. There is a growing concern within the body as it pertains to contracts over $50,000 not coming back. There's a reason why that was clearly put forth, so council would have oversight. And so we'd have a better understanding as to who's receiving funding, what they're actually doing, and is there accountability. And so I understand the standpoint from the administration. I've been around here long enough to understand that the administration wants as much leeway as possible, but we are elected officials, and we have a right to ask those questions. We have a right to scan anyone who receives, any entity that receives over $50,000. So again, that's something that we'll be talking about internally. I have Councilwoman House Jones and then Councilwoman Gray.
Yes, through the chair. So it's a couple of things. So I'm just getting a clarification for this legislation through the chair to the chief. This contract that's put in front of us is a combination of the after-school summer program and the YLU contract, correct?
Through the chair to Councilwoman House Jones, that is correct.
Okay, so just going back from that point of context, I know that there was a joint safety and workforce youth development operational conversation that happened in November, if I'm not correct, that went explicitly into all the things specifically for this contract. And see, that's one of the things, I guess this is a request, to ask for the actual breakdown. So when you look back into the work that we did, specifically 82-2024, this was the contract specifically that was focused on our summer youth program. When you look at that contract that we passed in February 12th of 2024, it was a 1.4 contract to YLU, and it had 345 youth participants. And in this contract, they are proposing to increase 55 youth to 400 youth, and this actual contract. So that was from last year. Separately, when there was a contract that, the ordinance that we passed, 313-2024, for $1,377,590 that we passed on April 22nd, 2024, that went through explicitly all of our after-school summer programs. And so the difference between the combination of those two contracts is $24,432. That's an increase proposed from 2024 to 2025. I'm asking through the chair to the chief, can you be, I would offer to you, based on those two ordinances that this body passed in February and in April of last year, if you can actually provide the breakdown similar to that was done in Ordinance 82-2024 and 313-2024, because again, for myself, I do remember, that's why I was able to recall it, to pull it up so that we can have a substantive conversation. That would be very, very helpful, which actually had the breakdown of all the various contracts. The other thing that I would at least try to offer to the context, because again, Advantage tennis that is in Ward 7 actually came up, and people talked about a per pupil. I cannot speak for anybody else, but since this program explicitly came up, I can share from my perspective. Right? So I can tell you there, I have Wade Park Elementary School, Mary B. Martin School, Wilson and Daniel E. Morgan that are in Ward 7 that participate in the school. In their summer program in 2024, there were 169 young people that participated in a free 8-week summer camp that operates in Thurgood Marshall Recreation Center. In addition to that, there were about 1,000 young people that participated in Advantage Cleveland. What did that look like? There were 650 young people through teacher exploration that participated in there. There were another 50 of our young people that participated in summer weekend programs, and then there was a balance of about 150 young people that participated in the after-school program. So collectively, when you looked specifically at Advantage Cleveland's contract, they did all of that work for $54,151. So that's, I can tell you what's going on in Ward 7. I participate every year. That program, they didn't watch me. They have something called the Callahan Cup, where they come together, all of the schools, like that teacher immersion program, they go down and they participating with the college students at Cleveland State University, who then serve as tennis, coaches and things of that nature. And then all of the young people come together in April for the Callahan Cup. I've been doing that now for the last 3 years, and I'm maybe other people have been invited, because I know there are other schools that are participating in the program, but myself, as well as the principals in Ward 7, have all attended every year to actually see the display of what's going on. That is the one program, like I said, that's going on in Ward 7, and I know Clevelanders have been beneficiating of Advantage Cleveland. So for some of the other programs, I would encourage colleagues, when our providers are reaching out to come and to engage. They can provide you the numbers, they can do, and again, I can variably see. And if there are those who have problems, then I don't think this is a body to be shy about saying, no, this is not the most appropriate. But I would be remiss, because people talked about Advantage Cleveland and a $54,000 contract that they had last year. I don't know what is being proposed for this year, but I know they are definitely punching above their weight. So, and I would like to see that investment continue. But I do think when we talk about the outlines of proposing through the chair to the chief, if you all can bring the outlines similarly to what you did in the previous legislations that I outlined, that explicitly lays all those things. But I know we had the conversation with YLU in November, which was a joint meeting from safety and prevention, and then we could go from there.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you, Council Lee. Councilwoman Gray.
Yes, I just want to, thank you, Chair. I just want to say this. I know some of the programs that you incorporated at the rec centers, have been efficient with the recs, in the community. Whereas, just like Hamilton, when you created the program at Hamilton Rec with them doing the, they learned engineering principles at Hamilton Rec when they built the benches, they built other electrical structures, which worked out fantastic. And it was explosive because to get that many children in Hamilton Rec was outstanding. As we know, the imbalance of how the children come into, Hamilton Rec all the time. And also, I understand about YOU. YOU does a fantastic job every year, employing kids all over Cuyahoga County. However, some of the programs that has been implemented throughout the rec, sometimes some of those programs doesn't fit the area of the kids. They do not gravitate to those specific programs, because I know that you're trying the best you can to figure out which program that will connect with the children in those specific areas of the rec. As I was saying, pointing out earlier, I know this particular program is not on the list, but the one that you have going on now at Zama Joy has not connected with the children in that area at that rec center. And that's the, I think that's what Councilman Casey said about performance balance. If you can look more into figuring out which program that can connect, that would be helpful to the children in the rec centers, because I know that when you implement a program in the rec centers, the kids in the rec centers are supposed to participate instead of going out finding other kids in the community. You're supposed to have a certain amount. If you're not aware of that, I am, that when you implement a program in the rec center, you can work with the director and the coach, whatever coach there is, that's, is working with the sports program, that you get a certain amount of kids per age to attend those programs that you implement in the rec center, because at least you'll start with at least a number of 8 or 9 kids from the basketball, from the soccer, from baseball, and you be able to have that number of kids at least attending those programs, because they have to attend those programs in order to do the sports program. That's my understanding of how you can collaborate with the director at the rec centers to start off with some amount of kids to see how that program works for them and see how they can grow from that and have an understanding per se. If that can be helpful for you to do that, because the program, I know the program that's going on now at the Zelma George is not being fulfilled at all. Because I go there and I go to that program to see if any kids are there, and they're not. And I don't know the reason why, but I was trying to figure out how we can work together to see that, because the program is getting funded. Those staff members are getting paid, but no kids are there at all. And if one is even in there, that one stays only for a little bit of time, because that one person is showing no interest while they're there, and then they leave. And because when I went to check it out, Chair, to the director, I went to check it out, and I'm there 3 days a week. There's no children in that program.
What center is that again?
That's Zelma George. And Zelma George is busy with kids all the time. And as you well know, that's one of the functional rec centers in the Ward 4, more so than Hamilton and Woodland. But to see the program is excellent. You have great curricular set up. in all different ways, per se, but to go in there and there's no kids in there between 3 and 6, I'm just shocked, because I go in early, I come back before it's over, and no one has attended, and that's what the staffers and the director and we had a conversation about that, and they said that they trying their best to get kids' interest in there, but there's no kids have no interest even in the curriculum that you have, because there's various things that you have on the list for someone would, for somebody that would be interested in, per se, but however and stuff, there's no kids attending that particular program. So to say the least, I understand everyone's concern, and that's what I think that we're talking about, is to set up contracts and ask for more funding. We got to figure out which type of program that will gravitate and show interest to our children in our rec centers, per se. So I can see your point, and I can see my colleague's point, but some of these programs are not working. But I want to say this also, Chair. The program you have in Meredith Taylor, what program is that at Meredith Taylor?
Through the chair
Which,
to
And
Councilwoman.
at which Meredith Taylor? Because we have quite a few across town. I have one in Ward 4.
Meredith Taylor has their headquarters in your ward, right next door to Hamilton Recreation Center. They also have sites in Glenville and on the west side of Cleveland, so they've got a few sites across the city. Our work with Meredith Taylor is specifically to expand the work that we do with our social support specialists.
Okay.
They offer additional clinical staff that are able to support residents and community members when it comes to grief and crisis. And so if you all recall, unfortunately, we're living in a city where violence is taking place, and a lot of our residents are impacted directly and indirectly. And so we wanted to make sure when an incident occurred in a community that we could partner and make those kind of clinical and therapeutic services available immediately if there was a crisis that was occurring in the neighborhood. And so when something happens in community, unfortunately, we know something horrific just happened on the southeast side. I've been in contact with you, Councilman Bishop and Councilman Jones, to make sure as you are engaging with residents, if there are people who need additional grief and trauma support, not only are social support specialists available, but also the clinical team from Meredith Taylor. They have done a significant amount of work with us. They respond to the crises, and then they also provide some hours in partnership with our social support specialists and rec managers in the actual centers in case something very tragic happens, where they can be right there available. In addition to that, they provide additional services to support young men who participate in the Summer Hoops After Dark program. And so they do a lot of work with us. They do have a contract with the city, but they do also have additional dollars through other funding to allow them to help us get that work done.
Thank you for that, because I did speak to Mr. Director Cluster yesterday. We had a long, thorough conversation due to the incident with the 10-year-old young man that got shot, and he went through the program that he's partnered up with PRO, because I received your email. He responded to the email, and we got together yesterday, and he thoroughly walked me through of how the partnership with the city of Cleveland is going to be working through Meredith Taylor. But I just wanted to confirm that, but also I was just wondering, was there another type of program also that you incorporated with Meredith Taylor as well? But that's the one that I know.
That is it.
That is it.
Yes,
per se.
and through the chair to Councilwoman, I don't want to let her comments go by the wayside, and so Sherry wanted to respond to that, if you don't mind.
Okay.
And we appreciate these kinds of things, right? We spot check, we work with our vendors and our partners, but we don't know everything. And so our partnership with council, when you're able to offer feedback, share with us when it's happening, right? This is what you're seeing or not seeing. That is very helpful so that we're all working collectively
Yes.
to ensure something good for our residents.
So you can respond, no kids involved in the program?
Yes, through the through the chair to Councilwoman Gray. Director Cash did share with me your concerns, and I reached out to After School All Stars.
Yes.
And they are working to recruit more students in that program, but I think I need to share that that program is not solely funded by us. That there's because we wanted to add Zelma George, because of our emphasis in that area, to the After School All Stars program. They found some additional funding to help support it, and they got off to a slow start because they were in the process of hiring the person that's the instructor that's managing that program. But and we did offer this program at Zelma George during the summer, and it was well received program. We did have youth, and so that's why we thought that this we could come back there and have a successful program. But again, we evaluate these kinds of things. One program may not work at one site, so we will move it to another site to see if we have better success there. And if we don't have success, we are very quick to say, okay, we're not moving forward with this contract.
Okay. So what,
Okay, I have one more question.
Yes, go ahead,
Chair. Thank you.
Councilwoman.
Okay, I want to ask one more question. To the Advantage Tennis Program, I know that there's a tennis program through Neighborhood Leadership Institute that also incorporated tennis program in the summertime with Zelma George, and I worked with Commissioner Gessatana on that. And they also fund their tennis program throughout other RACs. Is the Advantage Tennis Program partnered with the Neighborhood Leadership Institute that also fund programs through the RACs? Because I'm dealing with them, and that program have pretty much been successful, but it kind of varies how the kids, gravitate to these different tennis programs. Because I'm not aware of that one, because I deal with the, Neighborhood Leadership Institute. So are you guys partnered with them or not? Chair to the director.
Through the chair to Councilwoman, we can go back and look in detail, but what I would say is we have a variety of vendors in the out-of-school time space that provide different programs. And so the Advantage Tennis Program is a historic program that we work with throughout some time. The NLI program, I've heard of it, but we have not had them respond to and receive funding directly out of this set of dollars.
Right, I believe they receive their funding elsewhere. However, I just wanted to know, since I wasn't aware of that, and I deal with NLI, with their tennis program at Zelma George. Thank you, Chair.
If you can provide to us if there's any integration, interaction, because again, if we're funding 2 tennis programs, is there overlap? Is there duplication? Should we only be funding one?
To the chair, I can tell you there is not duplication
Okay.
from the perspective of where they're providing the program.
Okay, fine. Okay, any other questions of the committee? What's the pleasure of the committee as it pertains to this piece? Councilman Casey, you have a recommendation?
Mr. Chairman, I'd recommend either we amend the legislation or we hold it for further discussion.
What's your proposed amendment? Because we have a short amendment already that I read earlier. So go ahead.
My amendment would be in Section 1, Line 11, would read...
Section 1, 911.
Line 11, it would read for a period of 12 months with 2 options to renew for a period of 2 years, exercisable by the Director of Finance with further legislative authority. And then we would add any and all contracts exceeding $50,000 is exercisable with further legislative authority.
Okay. You've heard Councilman Casey's proposed amendment. Is there a second to that? Is that a motion?
That's a motion to
That's a
amend.
motion. Is there a second to that? Is there a second by Councilman
Second.
Slight? Discussion on the proposed amendment. Questions? Comment?
Mr.
Okay.
Chair,
Yes.
could Councilman Casey add the RQS amendment to just read it into the...
Okay.
Oh, Slipes got that right.
Go ahead.
do you want to vote on these as separate amendments or just add that one?
We're going to vote on.
Separate.
We're going to vote on separately. We have the initial amendment, which is, again, as I indicated, I'm going to read it again. The initial amendment that came before us in Section 2 at end, insert ROS 0114, comma, RLA 2025-06. Would this amendment affect Councilman Casey's amendment at all to the law director?
It should not affect it.
Okay, then we're gonna take a vote on the First Amendment before us, which has been read. All in favor? Aye.
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 Opposed? Okay, that amendment is approved.
And I will move to further amend the legislation in Section 2 at the end by inserting RQS 0114, comma, RLA 2025-06.
Okay. Councilman Casey's amendment that has been made, it has been seconded. Any questions on the amendment? All those in favor? Call the roll, Madam Clerk. Yes.
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 Thank you, Madam Clerk, the Chief, your team. You heard the amendment. We'll be moving on to finance. Thank you very much.
Thank you. And to the chair, I just want to elevate. We'd like to work with you very quickly to schedule these next conversations because we have 15, we estimate 15 contracts that we would need to discuss per your amendment, with 4 of them needing an immediate attention in order for us not to
Immediately
interrupt.
with you on that.
Is there an opportunity to bring those contracts to finance? What is stopping those contracts from just coming to finance on Monday based on a contract?
That would have to be a decision of the council president. Yeah.
To the chair, would you be acceptable of that?
If the council president is acceptable, I would.
Okay, we'll work that out with you and the council president.
And if I may, I would also add, if there's a need for us to consider joint committees and things, I don't think the intent is to cause unnecessary delays. It's
We
to
move, when
ensure
we're
the
asked,
oversight,
we
yeah.
move on stuff. But again, I think you heard our concerns. And that's a legitimate concern. So we'll look forward to working with you on these contracts and moving forward.
Thank
Okay,
you.
without objection, ordinance number 43-2025 is approved as amended. Please sign it up. Let's get going on this stuff. We got ordinance 122-2025 by council members Polensek and Griffin by departmental request, an emergency ordinance authorizing the Director of Public Safety to apply for and accept a grant from the Ohio Bureau of Workers' Compensation for the purchase of firefighter turnout gloves for the Division of Fire, Department of Public Safety. Came to us on January 27th, approved by Director of Public Safety, approved by Director of Finance. There's no legal objection. Let me see what the estimated cost is. Estimated cost, I see, is we're going to accept a grant for $15,000, and the matching funds from the city, if I am reading this correctly, is $3,000. Director, and I thank you for your patience being here. That's 122.
Thank you. Morning, Chair, council members. Join me at the table. My staff, to my right is Assistant Director Nicole Carlton. To her right is Assistant Chief Engelhardt. And we have our Dawn Hartsong, who handles all of our grants.
Thank you.
Assistant Chief Engelhardt is here to answer any questions relative to this particular ordinance, which is ordinance number 122-2025. If approved by council, the ordinance number as stated, 122-2025, would authorize me, the Director of Public Safety, to accept the Ohio Bureau of Workers' Compensation Safety Intervention Grant for firefighter exposure to environmental elements for the purchase of firefighter turnout gloves for the Division of Fire, Department of Public Safety. The grant amount is $15,000 and requires a matching funds of $3,000. And we're here to answer any questions that the council may have.
To the, to whoever can answer, this is for, would be all firefighters. This is for all frontline personnel?
To the chair, that's
Pull it in
correct.
front of you. Is it on? Okay, yeah.
Through the chair, that's correct.
Okay. So this is all new gloves. We submit, our portion is $3,000, and we're to receive $15,000. Any questions of the committee? Any questions of the committee? Without objection, ordinance number 122-2025 is approved as read. Please sign it up. Ordinance number 123-2025 by Council Members Polensek and Griffin by department request, an emergency ordinance authorizing the Director of Public Safety to apply for and accept a grant from the United States Department of Homeland Security for fiscal year 2024, assistance to firefighters grant program, and authorizing the director to enter into one or more contracts for 3 air compressors, 35 multi-gas meters, and associated equipment for the Division of Fire, Department of Public Safety. Came to us for the first time on January 27th, approved by Director of Public Safety, approved by Director of Finance. There's no legal objection. And I want to say to the viewing public, when I say it came to us, that was the first time it was read, and then it goes for this, on all these, they go for departmental review, and then they come back to us for proper hearing. So, Director and your team, tell us what this is about.
Yes, sir. This grant will provide funding for the purchase of 3 air compressors and related equipment. The air compressors will be used for filling self-contained breathing apparatus. This grant would also provide funding for 35 multi-gas meters and related equipment and installation of charges for the Division of Fire. The grant award is in the amount of $246,761.20 and includes a grant match of $24,676.12. And it's for a grant period from June 1st of this year through May 31st of 2027.
Okay. My question is beyond this to Dawn. We're all concerned at the table and within the body as it pertains to potential loss of federal grants, federal dollars. Is there any discussion, or have you heard anything about Homeland Security grants being cut?
To the chair, I have not heard anything yet. There's quite a bit of confusion and concern, but nothing has been finalized.
Okay. I would hope you would keep us apprised of this, because I'm looking at comments that are being made on a federal level. I'm looking at comments that are being made in Columbus with regard to potential loss of funding. And I just want to be, not only on behalf of myself, but on behalf of the entire body, we want to be apprised if there's any potential cuts that we can start a lobbying effort as it pertains to making it clear how critical, and I say this to the viewing public, these grants, as you just heard this one, we're going to receive $246,000, and our responsibility is
24,000.
24. So that's a good deal, and we want to keep those grants coming. So, any questions on 123, Councilman Slice?
Thank you, and to sort of expand on that, we don't normally get to this level of detail, but through the director, Ms. Hartong, can you walk us through sort of how the money moves? As you know, like, do we put forward $24,000, and upon doing that, we receive the equipment, or do we receive the equipment? And what I'm trying to figure out is there a universe where we could, on any federal grant, essentially give money and not receive the end product? And is there a concern about how money is moving out of the general fund that we need to be thinking of as well?
Sure. Through the chair, the way most federal grants work, including this one, it's a reimbursement. So the City of Cleveland sets aside the funding for the entire grant amount, and then we purchase the equipment, we submit our invoices to FEMA, and then we get reimbursed.
Okay, so doing rough math, so essentially we are purchasing these at around in the neighborhood of 200, let's just round up and say $275,000. My concern would be something happens after we spend $275,000 and we don't get the grant. That I guess not really something to respond to. That's what we're trying to cut against. That's the fear, and I don't know what controls we could have on our side to avoid such a scenario. Hopefully, we don't experience it.
Has that ever happened?
Through the chair, no, that has not, and I think that's part of the reason why a federal judge stopped the order to hold all federal grants, because basically we have a legal contract with the federal government to reimburse us for these funding, for this
Okay.
funding. So the judge said, no, you cannot just stop and tell people they're not going to get
Yeah.
reimbursed.
Okay.
Just a point of
Thank you.
information.
Yes, Ms. House-
Just
House Jones.
last night, while they rescinded the memo, from my understanding, I just got an email last night, federal funding has actually freezed. There are organizations right now, a housing organization cannot pay to help support people. They have immediately freezed all of their funding, so applications that are in, they are not getting the memo because the federal government has actually frozen these distributions that are going into communities.
Okay.
I have the email, and that's right now what I am hopefully will be able to contact to send the information to our federal delegates, our federal representations, being Senator Bernie Moreno, Senator John Husted, as well as our congressional representative, Representative Chantel Brown, because they have frozen federal funds that are not coming to cities.
Yeah.
And to the chair, if I can
Yes,
comment on
Director.
that. There are some funds that are frozen. I believe that through the federal government, there's a lot going on. There's no question about that. I believe some of the things that are still moving forward from a federal perspective to local governments are public safety related items. I believe those are not frozen,
Okay.
which this would fall under. And again, as Don articulated, these are contracts that the local governments have with the federal government to pay bills. So again, I believe, again, from what I understand, what I read, that public safety grants are still moving forward.
Okay. Well, again, as I've indicated, please, you got to keep us apprised. Keep the council apprised, the council president's office, the clerk's office, all of us in council. So as Councilwoman House Jones indicated, if we need to embark upon a massive lobbying effort here, we're going to have to do it because I say this to the viewing public, these federal dollars that we receive are critical to the operation of the city of Cleveland. Without these federal dollars, it would have to come out of the general fund, which then could affect other services, goods and services that we provide to our citizens. So this is nothing to ignore. And again, I thank all my colleagues for being concerned about this issue. Without objection, ordinance number 123-2025 is approved as read. Please sign it up. We have two brief presentations.
Is it from safety?
Yes.
Okay. Miscellaneous.
We have two presentations from safety. If the director would come to the table. Well, he's at the table. Ask the chief to come to the table. And the inspector general.
Do you want to start with the police hiring
Yes.
event? Okay.
We have asked for the director and the chief to give us a brief update as it pertains to their expedited hiring. We all know the concerns that we have within the body and that our citizens have with regard to the division of police, the ranks, as it pertains to the sworn ranks, the number of officers working our streets, concerns about deployment, concerns about staffing of specialized units, concerns about traffic enforcement. I could go down the list, but all of you know the concerns because you're dealing with them every day. And I want to commend the administration for their enhanced hiring events. I believe this has been an improvement from what we have seen in the past. I would hope other departments and divisions would consider likewise doing the same thing. because it takes too long to get people employed with the city of Cleveland. I hear that all the time. It takes forever to get somebody a job who applies for employment with us. So again, at this time, Director, Chief, if you want to update us as it pertains to your expedited hiring for the Division of Police.
Sure, I'm going to start off, but I'm going to turn it over to the experts, which
Okay.
is Chief Todd and her staff, and joining us at the table is Chief Todd, Deputy Chief Fay, and also Lieutenant Hernandez. Lieutenant Hernandez is the point person for this hiring event, which, as you know, took place this year,
Yes.
the 3rd and 4th and 5th of January. They have all the numbers, I have it too, but again, they're in charge of it, so I'll let them give you all the information relative to the hiring event.
Okay.
Good morning.
Start.
Good morning, Council Chair and Council
Go ahead,
members. So we have Lieutenant Hernandez, who is overseeing our training section, recruitment section. She's the acting commander in that capacity at this time. As you know, we've conducted one hiring event so far in 2025, and we have plans for one each quarter this year. But I would like them to present this information to you because they are the organizers of the event and they will address any questions. So I'll turn it over to Deputy Chief Fay and Acting Commander Hernandez.
Floor is yours.
Thank you. Good morning, everybody. My name is Daniel Fay. I'm the Deputy Chief Administrative Operations. I have a really good team that works under me. Commander Maguth, who is currently not here, he's actually at the FBI National Academy.
Okay.
So Lieutenant Hernandez is filling in for him. Mark and Jen have done a phenomenal job with the hiring events. We've reduced the time that we hire people significantly. That was the #1 complaint. It takes too long to process candidates. We have shrunk that significantly. These hiring events, we've done 3 so far. We want to do 3 every year. That equates to about 3 academy classes per year. We'd love to get approximately 60 recruits per academy class. We're budgeted for 180 every year.
Right.
So the hiring events have really been a game changer, a paradigm shift for how we do business. And I just want to, before I forget, just kind of shout out to Civil Service and Human Resources. They have been a phenomenal partner for us to make this happen. Without them, we couldn't get this done. So what we've done, it's a 3-day event where candidates can come in, complete all the steps that are required to get a conditional letter of hire. It's phenomenal. It's really been a game changer for us. And I'll let Lieutenant Hernandez kind of speak a little bit about the efforts. Her and her team have done a phenomenal job. So Jen?
Lieutenant, welcome to the table.
Thank you. To the chair. We are implementing these quarterly hiring events. We had one on January 2nd, 3rd, and 4th of this year. There are currently 118 in the process. We had 305 attend, and we ended up giving 162 total conditional 162 total conditional offers. Currently, we have 118 in the background investigations. September 13th through the...
So, excuse me.
Yes.
So you started with 162, it's down to 118, correct?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. September 13th through the 15th, we had 241 candidates. We gave 139 conditional offers. There were already 32 in the process, so that gave us a total of 171 conditional offers. We are currently at, we provided 49 appointment letters then, and we are currently at 46 recruits in the academy. 3 left the academy so far.
And that's, what class would that be?
That class is 158.
Okay.
And class 156, that was the normal hiring process. We didn't have a hiring event associated with that.
Yes.
We had 114 conditional offers given, 35 appointment letters, 5 have left the academy, so we have 30 recruits under that. And then the first hiring event, that was class 155 attended. There were about 361 that attended that first hiring event, 132 conditional offers, and 52 were hired.
Okay. What is the in your initial review and scanning, what's the greatest drawback or deficiency you're seeing with the applicants?
Well, what we're trying to do, and we moved the recruitment unit from the under public safety to the division, so
Right.
we could provide more of a focused and personalized attention to the recruits, to the candidates. And I think that's big, just staying with them, providing that communication. We assign recruiters to every candidate now in our recruitment unit. Just providing clear expectations of timelines and start dates. A lot of candidates want to know when they're going to be hired, when they're going to start the academy. Yeah, and the hiring events and our recruitment unit really providing that personalized attention with each candidate, I think is really helping us.
But when you're doing the scanning, what is the, as you're washing people out, and whoever can answer, is it psychological, is it background, is it priors? What is your common, is there a common denominator?
Yeah, to the chair, I'll give you some data points. So for the 156th Academy class, we had approximately 576 total candidates.
Yes.
So 67% of them individually withdrew for whatever reason. 67%.
Even after they came down to apply?
Yes, they applied.
Physically came here?
Well, you can do it online. Yeah,
Okay,
it's
okay,
virtual, yeah,
okay.
yeah, exactly. They applied.
Okay.
576 applied. 67% or 384 of those candidates said, nah, I don't want to go through the process for whatever reason. It's their individual choice. Another 15% or 88 candidates.
Stop right there.
Yep.
Have we done anything to reach out to them as to why they decided differently?
Yep, great question. We have. Our recruitment team reaches out individually to those candidates to ascertain why.
Right.
What can we do to get them back into the game? So yeah, we do reach out. Yeah, there's definitely a feedback model there.
And as a result of that, do you have that data as to why? Because when Yellow Jacket, who was retained by the administration.
Little Jacket.
Little Jacket, excuse me. Yeah, you know, yeah, I had a few Yellow Jackets this summer, right? When they met with the council president, myself, and they said they were doing the exit interviews, and they were interviewing of potential candidates, the two deciding overwhelming factors why individuals were leaving the department and then not pursuing was issue 24 and then the federal monitor being here. Those were the two major factors. And so it'd be interesting to find out in your interviews with the people who backed out, what was the determining factor? Was it pay? Was it length of time it was going to take? I think that's important for us to understand it, because if there's things that we need to better address here within the legislative body, then I'm for doing it, because we need more people in our neighborhoods. That's the bottom line. And I hear it as I heard it again last night at a neighborhood meeting. Chief.
So to the chair, that's a very good question. The messaging was different. You would hear a lot of about issue 24, about the consent decree, but the biggest shift we saw was when the pay changed.
Okay.
You know, the interest when, Mayor Bibb was, talking about the RISE initiative and having that, the recruits with a higher pay and the salaries for the officers a higher pay, we've seen a complete shift. That's not only in the recruitment, but it's also in the retention. When you look at the way it was, the pay for a recruit was not a livable wage. So when you had,
Yes.
Somebody, you're asking them to take a pay cut for 7 months, and they, just wasn't feasible.
No,
We've seen a true shift in interest and retention since the pay change.
And that's why council advocated that as well.
Absolutely.
We advocated the hiring bonus. In fact, we advocated a higher hiring bonus. But nonetheless, we're here to be supportive. We need to have people filling these critical positions. And so I want to make sure that component that is really pursued as it pertains to why people back out. Because if there's something that we need to be aware of, then we need to be told. Because we have to do everything we can to make this job attractable We want, there was a time, I've been here long enough when I can remember, they would actually ask for other departments and at City Hall to actually help the testing, because there were so many people there'd be 3,000 people over there taking a test. I mean, I couldn't believe the number of people that would take a test in a day for the Division of Police. And we've gone completely opposite. And so we got to get back to the day that this job is in demand. That's what I want to see. I want to see a demand. I want to see people wanting to become division members of the Cleveland Police Department. I want to see a police department that's reflective of our city, of the population, the nationalities, the races, the various religious groups. That's what I want to see, because then you're going to have a kind of department that we can all point to with pride. So continue.
Just real quick, if I can touch on that, I do want to thank the administration and City Council for your continued support.
Yeah.
It makes a world of a difference. And if you haven't had the opportunity to see one of the expedited hiring events, even when it's here at City Hall, I encourage you to go see it.
Yeah.
It's really a breath of fresh air to see all of these young people who want to be a part of the Division of Police and the change in the city of Cleveland. So
Okay.
I encourage
Also,
you
if I
to
can
come
add,
down.
and also I can add, kind of piggyback off of Chief, also not only young people, but older, because we've changed the age as well.
Yeah.
So we have folks a little bit older that's also applying to become
more
police
seasoned.
officers.
More
Yeah, seasoned
seasoned.
individuals.
That's right. That's right. There's nothing wrong with seasoned people. Okay. And now, so as of right now, we have 46 in the academy. Is that what you're saying?
46, and then 30 in the other. There are 2 recruit classes in currently.
Right. So a total of 76.
Correct.
Just for clarification, it's 77, because we have one member that was injured in the 155th Academy who still hasn't tested out. So
Okay.
77 total.
So we have 77 physically seated,
Yes.
and they would graduate when?
Yeah, so the 156 is going to graduate April 25th of this year.
April 25th.
Yep.
And then the
And
other
then
class would
The
graduate.
158th is going to graduate August 1st of this
Okay.
year.
Good.
And then we'll start the 159th April 28th. So we're going to graduate a class on a Friday and start one on a Monday.
That's the way to go, man.
And one more point a very important point. Last year was the first time since 2019 we had more hires than departures. And that trend is
Yeah.
significant.
You
We
ain't kidding.
plateaued in 2020.
You ain't kidding.
And that was a real seminal year for the Division of Police. We are trending upwards.
Yeah.
And a lot of the factors include the hard work of the men and women of the division
Yeah.
and the administration.
Well, that's why, as I said, we're here to be supportive. I applaud the expedited hiring process. That's something we've long advocated here. I still keep asking myself, for almost 2+ years, how in the heck were we only getting like 9 and 10 people in the academy? I keep asking myself, what in the hell, excuse my language to the viewing public, what in the hell didn't happen here that should have happened? That we were not hiring, we were getting, again, a 9, I think one class was 9, if I'm not mistaken, correct?
Yeah, we can only start with
Yeah.
10, but yeah, so went down to 9. that's
And I
correct.
could never figure it out. What happened for over 2 years here that we were not getting people to apply for the Division of Police? And so I've heard all the conspiracy theories and everything else around here, but at the end of the day, obviously there's been a positive change, which is good for us, because we all see there's still in excess, correct me if I'm wrong, over 200 officers based on age and length of tenure that could leave. If that's correct. Okay. So we cannot take anything for granted. We cannot have any lull in this process. We got to be aggressive as we possibly can as pertain to filling these ranks. Because again, I've got to say this to the viewing public. There's this perception that somehow we're hiring police officers to arrest. No, we're hiring police officers to protect and serve. And I would hope that none of our people would have to arrest anybody. We just want visibility. We want traffic enforcement. We want the sex crime unit staff. We want homicide staff, domestic violence. We want all the specialized units staffed. And we want to be able to see, again, interaction with our kids in schools like we once had. We want to see the walk and talk. We want to see officers out in our neighborhoods again like we once had. and things ramped up the way they used to be. Things that I took for granted when I came in this body today are a luxury, and I want to make sure that we're doing everything we can collectively from the standpoint of Safety Committee and the Council to support your efforts. So is there anything else you need to tell us about the recruitment?
To the chair, no.
Okay, Chief, anything? Director? So we're on the right path.
Yes, sir.
Questions of the committee? Councilman Casey.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman, to the director, I think it was during COVID, the city got a grant from the state for a retention bonus for $3,000 per police officer. Has all that money been paid out?
To the chair, that's correct. The bonus retention checks were cut to the police officers as well as to firefighters and EMTs.
But all that, everybody's been made whole on that grant from the city, from the chair to the director?
Through the chair to Councilman Casey, that's correct.
Okay. And then, Mr. Chairman, to the director or the chief, the $5,000 bonus that the city offered for new hirees, I believe this council thought it was going to be a $5,000 bonus, right? Maybe once they completed academies, once they're on for 6, but I don't know, whatever it is. I've been hearing since about the 152nd class that people are having difficulty getting their 5,000. I think what they thought it was going to be compared to what it is. So can you explain to us, we thought it was going to be a $5,000 bonus. You get hired, you complete the academy, here's your bonus. Thank you very much. Let's move on. If you don't stay 5 years, you owe us the $5,000 back, whatever, however it was. So can you please tell us where we are in that process?
Sure. So through the chair to Councilman Casey, I'm going to let DC Fay break down, but it's not a one-time lump sum. It's part of it is once they are in the academy, part of it is once they complete the academy. So there is a process for that, but it is they don't ask for repayment on that bonus. So if you want to hold on 1 second.
Through the chair to the councilman, yeah, so the addendum to the contract with the CBPA was in August of 2023. The first paycheck is they received the $1,000, the first paycheck in the academy. And then 30 days after they graduate from the academy is another $1,000.
Okay.
And then when they complete probation, which is 6 months, that's the $3,000 payout.
Okay.
So 1,000, 1,000, 3,000. And that was an agreement with the CPPA and the city in August of 2023.
All right, so, Mr. Chairman, to DC. So it's $1,000 your first check when you're in the academy.
Correct.
$1,000 after you graduate, your first check after you graduate the academy.
Within 30 days, correct.
Within 30 days, it's the first or second check. And then $3,000 after you're off probation, which is a 6-month period, you said?
Correct.
And then the remaining $3,000 comes after you're off probation.
That's
Correct.
5,000.
Yeah,
Right,
yeah, so, yeah, $2,000 and a $3,000,
Correct.
right?
That equals 5,000, sir, correct.
Right, yeah. 1,000, 1,000, and 3,000. DC is 5,000. Okay, so yeah, we're good. All right, so that's how the payment of the 5,000 comes out. All right, thank you.
Thank you, Councilman. Councilman Slate.
Yes, thank you. Congratulations. 2 or 3 years ago or so, at that time, I was able to get some information out of safety and HR about kind of the recruitment hiring pipeline, and especially like the self-described diversity and residency. I would be interested in doing on our own time another dive into this success to understand where we are with kind of the diversity of the applicant pool, the residency of the applicant pool. I agree that first and foremost we need to hire positions, but this is such an opportunity for people, especially in a low-income community, to have a stable, good-paying job, to contribute back. So I would hate to find out that we're on one side succeeding in getting more people to apply and getting larger classes, but we're still struggling with getting Cleveland residents to be part of that process. So I don't know if you have anything broad about it to respond with, but it is something that I would like to get back to, because I think at that time what I sort of found was that there was actually a very to my surprise and delight, of a very large representation of initial Cleveland applicants and especially diverse Cleveland applicants. But something was happening along the way, whereas DC Fay said a lot of people were self-selecting out or something was happening. So there, to me, it was less a criticism and more there's a shared phenomenon happening here, and how can this body partner with you all to sort of try to correct for it. So happy to hear any response, but it is something that I still maintain an interest in.
So through the chair to Councilman Slife, we'll get that for you. We can get the demographics and the residency.
Any other questions of the council or the command staff as it pertains to recruitment, retention? Again, please keep us apprised. I think it's important. And, but just briefly, of the people who are your washing out, or is it based on background checks, psychological? What's the is there a common denominator? Is there something that comes out? Drug testing, you tell me.
Yeah, to the chair, the number one is the voluntary withdrawal. That's close to 70%. And we're digging into that data. Yeah. So the majority of the percentage of people that do not make it to the academy is because they did something. Either at the background, they withdrew. The division and the department, we probably eliminate maybe 8% of candidates. That's through the 1 for 10 selections or our background investigations. We don't eliminate candidates. Candidates eliminate themselves, if that makes sense.
But obviously, in some cases, you do find something in their background.
That's correct, sure.
Or a psychological test.
Correct.
But you're telling us that's a very small percentage.
Yeah, I'll give you mentioned psychological. So medical or psychological exam, there's a 3% failure rate.
Okay, I got you. Okay, well, again, I think we're on the right track.
I got one other question, Mike.
Yes, Councilman?
I just have one other question. Mr. Chairman, to the director, has there been a recent increase or uptick in retired police officers coming back and working part-time for the city?
Retired officers?
Retired officers?
Not to my knowledge.
Okay,
No.
you don't know of any, you don't know of anything?
No.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Do you have, well, on that point, do you have part-time? Or is everybody's full-time?
To the chair.
To the chair, no, we don't.
We do not have part-time police officers.
Okay,
That's correct.
okay. Thank you, glad to hear that.
One more point.
Yes.
Reinstatements, to the chair, to Councilman Casey. We've had reinstatements. We had 13 police officers that left last year and came back. And the year before that, it was 15. So we do have some reinstatements of sworn officers that do come back.
So, Mr. Chairman, to DC, as a reinstatement, that wouldn't be like, they wouldn't be, I guess we'll use the term double dipping though, right? I mean, a reinstatement officer is not somebody who is drawing a pension or another employment from somewhere else.
To the chair, that's
To the
correct.
chair, yeah, that's
Absolutely not.
Right, so a
Officers coming
reinstatement
back.
is somebody who left for whatever
Whatever
reason,
reason,
one
correct.
thought the grass was greener on the other side, but then they decided to come back, right?
That's
I mean,
correct.
that's different, no, all right.
And to the chair, I also have 2 on my desk right now that want to come back to the Division of Police that I'll be signing off on very shortly here.
All right, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much. And so, again, we want to be supportive. There's something that we need to be taking a look at. The legislative body, please make us aware of that so we can be partners in this whole process. So, okay, without any further question there, we're going to jump right into Inspector General.
Thanks.
Thank you, Chief. Thank you, Deputy Chief, Lieutenant.
Yes.
Okay. Director, the floor is yours.
Thank you. With me at the table, joining us at the table to my right, or immediate right, is Nicole Carlton, Assistant Safety Director, as everyone's aware, and then to her right is the new Inspector General, which is Shailene Agarwal. She's here to answer any questions, and actually more than just answering questions. She's going to get into actually what the Office of Inspector General does, its responsibilities and authorities. As everyone probably here at the table knows, when we initially started Inspector General, it was a police Inspector General. It was amended through the courts for the consent decree, amended to become the Public Safety Inspector General. Went through a hiring process, and ultimately Shailene Agarwal was chosen, selected based on her background, her educational, and her tenure. She was selected, and I'm glad that she's here. And again, she's here to answer any questions. But I'd like for her to explain what her position is, her authority, and responsibilities.
Is it Agarwal? Agarwal. Welcome to the table.
Thank you.
And you started when?
I started December 16th.
Okay.
Is this on?
No, it isn't. Yeah, make sure you pull a little closer. So you can-
So tell us about yourself briefly.
Sure. My name is, again, Shailene Agarwal, formerly Morris, and I have had a interesting and, I would say, diverse career.
Bring the mic closer to you.
Oh,
They can't hear.
closer?
Closer to you, yeah. They can't
Okay,
hear.
how's that?
There it is.
Oh, there we go.
Yeah.
Yeah, now I can hear myself. Okay. I've had an interesting and diverse career looking into public safety, but specifically police oversight. It has spanned different cities from Chicago, Seattle, Portland, Oakland, working within the city auditor's office within San Jose, so looking at city operations broadly, as well as other consulting areas where I've worked in other cities or conducted some kind of work in Ohio, Illinois, Indiana. And then just within that scope of work, being able to network and meet other professionals within oversight, law enforcement, think tanks, and able to share what we've all learned, ways that we can progress within oversight with reform, in support of communities and those law enforcement agencies that work to serve those communities. So that has been my background. I've thoroughly enjoyed the time that I have spent within each jurisdiction and the work that I was able to partnership with other folks and work to complete and conduct in support of those agencies and those cities, those communities. So coming back to my home state of Ohio is full circle. This is a really, really great time. And to come back and be here in Cleveland. I'm originally from Dayton, Ohio, the suburbs. So to be here in Cleveland is pretty great.
Okay.
So
And your last assignment was where?
last assignment was with the City of San Jose, the auditor's office.
Okay, wonderful. Okay, so how many people are assigned to Inspector General's office now?
To the chair right now, it's inspector.
Just
She's right,
inspector.
a person, she's a team of one right now.
Team of
She's
one.
budgeted for an auditor, which she will be hiring this year. We'll be coming back to this body for additional funding so she can hire additional individuals. But right now, it's just an inspector.
Okay. And we'll be seeing you firsthand during the budgetary process. We'll see you at the table and with the director. Briefly to the viewing public, tell the viewing public what your role is. What does the inspector do?
So the role of an inspector general, for the folks here in the room and people that are watching, an inspector general is very similar to an auditor's office, with the understanding that typically we're also operating as an independent authority, so that we are free from any bias or political interaction, so that we remain that independent, objective, not neutral, but objective body that can support city operations with integrity, with ethics, and utilizing the standards of an association of inspectors general, the Green Book, and following those standards rigorously. And maintaining an air of transparency, but not just transparency, that just means you can see what I'm doing, but that we are following those standards, those procedures, that integrity, those ethics, so that political stakeholders, city stakeholders, community stakeholders, even the folks that will come through your city, those that will traverse and visit Cleveland, can count on this office being the gold standard of objective results to any issues, whether they're reactionary and hopefully proactive, that we can see those things coming. And all of this is done in partnership, in collaboration with city and community.
Okay. Okay. Well, we look forward to working with you. I think, we haven't had an inspector general for a very long time. I think, in excess of 2 years?
Yes, that's correct.
And so we're gonna learn a lot, hopefully from you, and you're gonna learn a lot from us as well as it pertains to
I
our
hope
line
so.
of questioning and our engagement. This council, we are here to be supportive. I can tell you that. We're here to be supportive. We ask questions, as you can see from your short time here. We're engaged, and we're going to continue to be engaged. And again, on behalf of my colleagues, we look forward to working with you in your new capacity.
Thank you so much.
Any questions? of the new Inspector General. Any questions at all? If none, we will
Okay.
look forward to seeing you at the budget hearing.
Great. I look forward to
Thank-
taking more questions as well. I'd love that.
Public Safety Committee stands adjourned. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair.